Hi, my name is Sinai Naidu and I'm going to show you my code. I'm going to speak through it, explain it, and run my code and do the JUnit testing for my code. Before we start, I'd like to talk about what code this is for. This is for our POE Part 1. For this particular POE, we have to create a chat application. And for part 1, we have to create a registration and login feature console application. I have created two classes for this particular console application. I created the registration, also known as the registration underscore 2, and a login class known as the login. And I've also created JUnit test for the login class. First, I'd like to start off with the main Java class, which is our registration class. This class is the main Java class. It will collect all the necessary details from the user. It prompts the user for the username, password, cell number, first name, last name. These are just to register the user and to see if the user meets the required standards to save data for login. If the user input is invalid, then a message will pop up below it, notifying the user it was unsuccessful, please try again. If the user details are valid, then it will say that the user details have been captured successfully and will allow them to log in, and the login will then be successful. So that's just basically how this class works. It has all of the output messages and it's gathering the input messages. It has the output message of enter username, enter a password, enter a cell number, please enter your first name, please enter your last name, things like that. For this particular project, we had to use a scanner because we weren't allowed to use a graphical user input without G option pane. So it's all a console application, and for the scanner we had to import it, and I also imported or referenced our login class right here. So first off, I'd like to start off with all of the output we requested from the user. So all of these prompt for the user details. First we prompt for the username. Enter username and we tell them the requirements. It must have an underscore and 5 characters. Then we prompt for a password. It has to have 8 characters, including 1 special character and a number. The next one is a cell phone number. It has to have the format of a +27, which is our international code for South Africa for phone numbers. Next, we have our device prompting for a name and a last name. If the user has successful details and they followed all of these requirements, then it will say information has been successfully captured. If not, it will say unsuccessfully captured, please try again, but it will still allow them to log in. And because the registration was not successful, they have to say at the bottom of the login was unsuccessful, please try again. Because we are not using loops, the code will only run once. So these are basically, we use a system out print line for each of the user input details, and then after the last name right here, we then collect all the information. We register user and display the results. We then prompt for login, enter username to login, enter a password to login. And then below that we have this will display the results and login status, whether they have passed or failed. So it was unsuccessfully captured, please try again, or welcome back to the person who is logging in. So this is pretty much it for the registration class. Next, we're going to move on to the login Java class. So this is our main coding logic. This is where all of the code for all the variables, all of our attributes, everything is within this class. So this is the additional Java class with all the main coding logic. It checks for the user's data to see if it matches the requirements. For this class, the data checks for: does the username have 5 characters including an underscore? I've previously mentioned all of this in the registration, so I'm not going to go through that. Once the data is valid, it will display a message showing the success and will let you log in or display a welcome message. So basically, it takes the data from the registration class and verifies it based on the code. We used if and else statements and a Boolean expression. So first I've declared and initialized my variables. I've made them all private and I have 2 constructors here below. I've made the minimum of 5 string variables. There are more that we use here below, but these are our main ones. These are verifying the data. So first we have 2 constructors. We have the first one, which is empty. This is a default constructor. It is included to allow object creation with initial values. This ensures compatibility with the existing code that uses the new login method that's referenced in the first Java main class. That is our constructor. It's empty. Then we have a constructor that has parameters / arguments and objects. It creates the objects. We have these ones that have been mentioned here. We also instantiating, we're saying this username is equal to username, this password. So this variable is equal to that variable basically. So then all of these ones here up until here, these are all of our requirements that the user has to pass in order for their login and registration to be successful. So the first requirement is to check username. The first requirement checks for the specific standards, and we use if and else statements. I used an AND logical operator over here because we need to determine and check for 2 standards at once. We can't check for one and then another. It's better for the code to also look better and be more concise. So we put it into one line and they both have to pass these requirements. You can't have that it contains a underscore but more than 5 characters, or it doesn't contain an underscore and contains 5 characters. It has to have both in order for the username to be successfully captured. If it doesn't have those requirements, then the username is not correctly formatted. You have to have a username that contains an underscore and no more than 5 characters in length. The next requirement is to check the password complexity. We need a password that is greater than 8. It can also equal to 8. So it's less than or equal to 8. We use Boolean expressions for this. We also need a password that can be any part of the alphabet, but it has to be a capital letter. You have to contain at least 1 capital letter. You also have to make sure that the password has 1 number, 1 digit from 0 to 9. It also needs to have a special character, and these are all the special characters that it could contain. We also make use of more logical AND operators. We put in all of these together because they all need to have these standards. It needs to be less than or equal to 8 letters or characters. It needs to have a capital letter. It needs to have a number. It needs to have a special character. All of these are very important, or else the password will not be successfully captured. The next requirement checks the user cell number. If the cell number is following the format of the +27 with 9 digits, that means that the 0 will be excluded. If it does, then the cell number is successfully added. If it does not, then it is incorrectly formatted and it will not be added, and it does not contain the international code. This is the output for if that were to happen. The next thing we have, that is all it for our requirements. We now have our registration method to see the final input. It is checking whether or not all of the user input is valid. Okay. Then we have here the output if the user information is valid. If the user is valid, the password, so the user name, if the password is valid, if the cell number is valid, then the registration will be successful. If it is not, if the user name is invalid, if the password is invalid, if the cell number is invalid, then the registration will fail. Please check your details. So you would have to run the the program once again. So this is the login method. Once the user has inputted their details and login, whether they pass or fail the above requirements. So this will check now to see if they are able to log in. They won't be able to log in if their user details were unsuccessfully captured. So it will allow them to log in, but it won't capture their details, and it will tell them to please try again. The next method, this shows the login status, whether they have successfully logged in and registered. This registration checks if, this is if registration and login is successful. Sorry, I have a typo here. And login is successful. Else, return username or password incorrect. Please try again. So if it is successful, it will say welcome. It will add their first name, their last name, which is asked below the cell number and all the other details. It is great to see you again. If it is unsuccessful, username or password is incorrect. Please try again. So this is for an unsuccessful registration, hence the login will be unsuccessful. Even if you have the right login details, you put in the exact same username from the registration, because the registration is wrong, it won't allow you to log in. It will say, can you provide your login details? But then afterwards it will say login was unsuccessful. So based on the registration input, it is dependent on this. It will give you an output based on the registration. So this is the last of the code for the login class. We're now going to move into the test, the JUnit testing. So I have all of the testing to check username correct format, check if it's incorrect. So we've coded, we've expected, we are expecting it to be this format, and if it is successful, we are expecting it to have this format. If it is successfully unsuccessful, it will pass because it is not the correct format. And we've expected it to not be the correct format, so it will come out as 100%. So we're going to do two tests to show you how it works. We're going to open the test results window. The test is passed. The username is successfully captured because as you can see, we expected it and we saved it to be Kyle, which is the expected username, input and details, what we need, the valid information. If it is in this format, although it is in the correct format, it's still going to, even though it's in the incorrect format, it is going to pass because we coded. We're going to see that it's 100% passed in being unsuccessful. Open test results window. As you can see, the test is passed. The username is not correctly formatted. Please ensure that your username contains an underscore and is no more than 5 characters in length. This is the whole code for my POE part 1. I'm now going to run the application. So this is our output. Enter username. Please note that the username must contain an underscore and 5 characters. So I'm going to use the one that was provided to us, Kyle underscore 1. I'm going to say enter. Enter a password that contains more than 8 characters, including one special character and number. I'm going to do the one that was provided to us. I'm sorry, G. G9. As you can see, so far we are following the correct format. Then we're going to have the format of this 27 with 9 digits. So now we're going to enter our first name. It will be a capital Kyle Smith. Username has been successfully captured. Password successfully captured. Cell number successfully added. Registration was successful. Now let's use the specific username and password that we have added. So we're going to say Kyle _1, enter password. We're going to say G. And as you can see, it was successful. Welcome, Kyle Smith. It is great to see you again. So this was the successful output, the expected output if the user puts in valid information. Now I'd like to show you if the user were to put invalid information. I'm going to run the application again and use completely different inputs. So let's say if the user were to have a name like this, password, and we were to put it in this format. I'm going to use the same number from before to show you that it's the format that matters and not the phone number that you're putting in. First name Kyle Smith. As you can see, username is not correctly formatted. Please ensure that your new username contains an underscore and is no more than 5 characters in length. Password is not correctly formatted. As you can see, we've just said password, no special characters, no capital letter, no numbers. So it's not correctly formatted. Please ensure that the password contains at least 8 characters, a capital letter, a number, and a special character. Then we also say that the cell number is incorrectly formatted or does not contain international country code. Registration failed. Please check your details. Now we're going to try and log in to see whether or not it works. We're going to say Kyle password. Username or password is incorrect. Please try again. That is the unexpected output, or sorry, the expected output for invalid information. Thank you so much for watching. This is the end of my demonstration and my video of my code. Thank you.